The United States Congress has given the green light to AUKUS nuclear submarines, signing off on the Security Pact by a margin of 310 to 110. This will allow Australia to purchase at least 3 Virginia-class subs. The Prime Minister hailed the deal as an extraordinary achievement. Caroline, this is huge after the bill being held up now to become legislation and getting the ink, I guess, of President Joe Biden. Yeah,
it just needs his sign-off, Gemma, but it's been a long time in the works. There was a lot of wrangling on Capitol Hill over that, but it passed by a majority in the Senate, and the Senate Democrat Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said that, you know, this was a game changer and it will help Australia counter the threat from the Chinese Communist Party. It will mean a fleet, or it should mean a fleet of nuclear-powered submarines for Australia. And the Prime Minister himself said that he's spoken to more than 100 members of Congress in the US, either in person or over the phone, to try and get this passed.
Well, it's a really interesting timing for this agreement, because it does sort of put more gravitas to Australia's strategic relationship with the US in the same week that the Prime Minister, and as I touched on in my editorial, and Australia as a country voted against the US at the United Nations. And the Prime Minister this week, and just the last 24 hours, has said that Hamas cannot be allowed to retain power in Gaza. Take a listen.
We want Hamas to be disarmed. We condemn unequivocally the atrocities that occurred on October 7. We need to plan as well for what occurs after the conflict. Hamas can have no role in the future governance of Gaza, and we need to work towards a political solution.
Caroline, it seems to me that this is a tremendously conflicted message that the federal government and the Prime Minister are sending in relation to this matter. I don't think you have to be a Middle Eastern expert to understand that Hamas, as has proven in the first ceasefire, will use this time, if it's granted, assuming that it is, I don't think it will be from what I've read, to rearm, recalibrate and, you know, take its sweet time to decide when, not if, it violates that second ceasefire.
Well, we've had 2 ceasefires. We had a ceasefire on October 7, which, of course, Hamas broke with the massacres the following day. We had a ceasefire, a temporary pause, which Hamas broke, as you pointed out, by launching suicide bombers into Jerusalem and rockets into the heart of Israel. It's not interested in abiding by these ceasefires. It's shown that time and again. And the timing of this really is curious, because Israel, as I understand it from talking to a senior member of the IDF this week, is on this cusp of ending its bombardment of Gaza and moving on to more of the on-ground operations to weed out the militants from the tunnels. This timing is only going to benefit Hamas in terms of gaining some strength.
Emboldening them.
And emboldening them. And I think really the Prime Minister yet again is talking out of both sides of his mouth. He's calling for a ceasefire with the United Nations, and yet he's saying Gaza can't be allowed to govern over, Hamas can't be allowed to govern over Gaza. I mean, how is that going to happen without de-arming them?
Exactly. And I think this is the other thing that I find is so utterly rude about this situation is, if Israel does not eliminate Hamas, who is going to? Well, they are well prepared to do the world's dirty work for them in terms of ridding the world of this awful terrorist organisation. And I might point out again that the federal government prescribed Hamas as a terror organisation in March last year. This thing you can't make sense of if you try it. As my late father would say, they're trying to ride one horse and lead another.
Yeah, I think there's that certainly other countries, Western nations who are supposed allies of Israel, have shown they can't really stomach this fight, and there is an ugly cost to it. But unless leaders like Anthony Albanese can make clear in their statements, which they haven't, that Hamas is responsible for the suffering of its people by using them as human shields, by hiding their infrastructure, embedded within the civilian population, by stopping them from leaving to safe areas, until it can make that clear, then really it's showing it's awfully one-sided on this issue.
Couldn't agree more. Caroline Marcus, thank you for your time. We will see you again very shortly.